This week's video is about phasers, and I have titled it Phasers for Beginners because I want to go through the entire ecosystem of phasers, how we can easily get started if we are not that accustomed to GrandMA3 yet and we just want something going. And then we're going to go into creating our own phasers later, and then creating phasers with more than one parameter. First of all, we're going to play with dimmer, then we're going to play with color, then with movement, and then trying to combine these things into more interesting stuff. So let's just get right into it. As you can see over here, I made a small show with this view here. We have our groups up here. We have a few presets, which we will use later. We have our MA3 editor. We have our playback, so we can store something into queues. We have MA3 here, so we can store MA3. We have our sequence. We have two all pools, all pool 21, all pool 1, all pool 22, all pool 2. Then we have our 3D up here, so we can see what we're doing. And we have our phaser editor over here, so we can start seeing what's happening when we are manipulating phasers. But first of all, if you are new to GrandMA3 and you patch some fixtures and you want to get some movement going, or you want to get some dimmer effect or something going, it's quite simple. We're going to start with looking at the built-in predefined phasers MA supplied for us in the show file. So we need to import the predefined phasers first. And the easiest thing is to go up into the menu, go down to Show Creator, make sure you are on the Import tab up here, go into Macros, and you can see all these predefined macros that you can import into your show. We want to look for phasers, and you can see this one, Import Predefined Phaser. As soon as we import that, you can see it pops up over here in our local macro pool. We can close this down, and we can just temporarily open our macro window here, so we can see our Import Predefined Phaser macro. If you see this all pool number 1, as soon as we click this one, it's going to populate it with some predefined phasers that MA has built for us to make our life easier. So the first thing we want to do is we can turn on some fixtures. We can put them into a position and just turn them on. And we can basically just see here we have some dimmer phasers which are predefined. As soon as we click one of them, it's going to start doing something, depending on which one you have chosen. We can use snap, we can use dimmer sinus, snap off, chase, strobe, random strobe, all this stuff, and that all depends on what you want to achieve, basically. So this one is running now. It's quite simple. We haven't done anything to it yet, but we could, after we activated it, apply some MA3 to make it look a little bit more interesting than it does right now. So we could say phase to 360, and it's going to start going through all of them. So now we have something going. It was quite easy to do, and we could, if we wanted to, store this into queue number 1 on our sequence. We can say store sequence 1 queue 1, and that should basically do it. We have now stored that into our first sequence. Let's open up our sequence window here so we can see what's going on. Like this, we can just hide these rows here so we can see what's going on. Now you can see I have a sequence. I can go plus and I can go minus. If I clear this stuff here, nothing is happening as soon as I go this. This is just what we stored into a queue. So this is how you start something. If you want to stop something, you can select the same fixtures again, and you can say Stomp, and then you can press the parameter you want to stomp, or you can stomp everything. In this case, I just pressed enter. It's going to stop everything. So let's oops that. Let's try that again. Like this. So now we are going. We just oopsed our command. We can also say stomp, and then we can press dimmer, and it's going to stomp the dimmer layer and not all the other layers. So this is basically how you start and how you stop a phaser. So now it's running. Let's record or store queue number 2 where we stomp this stuff. We take all our Vipers, we say stomp, and if you are on a console, you actually have a stomp button you can push. So as you can see, we stored queue number 1. We have our phaser effect running, and we want to stop it in queue 2. We go up and select our Vipers. We use our stomp keyword here, and we press the dimmer here and now it stops. We can then turn them on and we can store that into queue number 2 on this sequence here. So as soon as I clear, they are running. As soon as I press go, they stop. This is the simple way of doing it. We can try to do the same thing with a circle. Let's take our Viper extended again here. We put them into a circle, and once again, they're just doing the exact same thing. Once again, let's go into our matrix and put that on afterwards. You can see they now start moving in a circle, and we phased it from 0 to 360. So we basically manipulated whatever was in our phaser here. We can store this into queue number 3. We just say store here, and now we have a third queue. We are back in queue number 2, as you can see here. As soon as I press go, we start this circle. Once again, we can stop it. We can say all our Vipers here. We can go into our Stomp here. We can say Stomp and press position, and it's going to stomp that stuff. So we store this into queue number 4, and now as soon as I clear this, if we start from queue number 1, the first thing we recorded, we stop it, we start a circle, and we stop it. This is how easy it is to work with the predefined phasers. You can go in and right click on these guys, and you can actually put your matrix directly into the phaser here if you want to. But the predefined phaser are just some template you can use and then manipulate afterwards. If you have used this in many places and you go in and you edit this in here into the phaser itself, then you will have changed everything you have where you have used this phaser, and you might not want to do that. So what you can do instead is you can copy it and then you can manipulate it there, or you can use it, combine it with other things, and then store it somewhere else. So basically we can take our Vipers here, we can put it into snap-on like this, we can phase that to 360, then we can add a circle if we want to, and we can also phase that to 360, and now we have made a phaser containing 2 different parameters, dimmer and pan and tilt, or position information. We could store this here, and now you can see we actually just made a new phaser, which is a combination of this one, and we stored that into the same thing here. And you can see here the small U up here, which means it's a universal phaser. And that means it's going to work for everything where we try to use it as long as the fixture has a dimmer parameter and position parameters like pan and tilt. This will actually work. So if we zoom out, I have my mega points up here, as you can see. I can zoom in a little bit here, and then I can turn them on, put them into a position, and I can apply the same thing here. And now you can see it's running a phaser on a lot of more fixtures. So you want to pay attention to the universal thing here. You can see this one up here will prefer selective information. If you store something here, it will try to make it selective. If you store something down here, it will try to make it universal. And the only thing you have to do to change the preference here is to go into your preset pool, and you can set the preset mode to universal, selective, or global in here. So if you are working with phasers, especially if you are a touring technician and you are cloning new fixtures into your show every day, having stuff universal is really, really important. It's going to help you a lot in the future. Sometimes if you build your own stuff and you store that, and you will sometimes get into not being able to store it universally. And there's ways around that, and we'll get into that later in this tutorial. But this is basically how easy it is to use the predefined phasers, and now we can move on to building our own phasers and see how that works. So if we clear this stuff here, we can go into our queue list here. We can go into queue number 4, I think, right here. Here we have queue number 4. Let's zoom in again. Now they are just on, and we can start building our own stuff. So let's say we want to build a color phaser of some sort. And if we go into the predefined phasers, we might not find the combination we want in here. We want to build our own stuff. And that's quite simple to do as well. But as you can see here, queue number 4 is active. All the Vipers are on, and we can start building a color phaser on our own. And we could make it a 3-step phaser just for the fun of it. So we take all our wipers here and we can go down here and we can type step, and that is everything you do after this will record something into step number 1. If you are on a console, you do have a step key. You can just hold it down and then you can click your different presets. It's going to create a phaser on that. But if we are on OnPC here, you can just type step and we can touch the white parameter. We can say step, which will record the next step. We can put that into magenta. And once again, we can say step and put that into blue. So now we actually made a 3-step phaser. This is how simple it is. And we can store this here if we want to. And now we stored this phaser. We didn't manipulate it. We didn't do anything. We just stored it here. So we clear this. We can take our wipers again and we can apply this one. And it's going to do exactly what we wanted it to do. We can also apply our matrix if we want to straight here. And we can store that into our sequence. But let's try to see if we can manipulate this one a little bit. Let's say we want the white to snap on, and then we want the other colors to fade between each other. So if we clear this, we can once again go up to our wipers here, we can apply it, and then we can go into our editor over here, we can go into 2D, which is where I prefer to work, because then you can actually see what's happening. You can see this small cursor running here. I don't know if you can see it on your small screen, and that is the current place it has in the full circle. So you can always see what's going on if you follow this small cursor here. And the cursor goes between R, G, and B. And right now the color 1 is also recorded into this one, so we can just turn this one off, so we don't manipulate this one. So you can see what's happening. The red is up here and the green is up here. Then the green is down in step 2 and the red is down in step 3, preparing to be into the white one. So working with this while it's running can be a little bit tedious. So what we can do is go down to single step and it's going to stop. And you can see down here which step we stopped in. And you can also see it here in the phaser editor. So let's say we want to manipulate step number 1. As I said, we want it to be fast in white and we want it to fade between the other ones. We can take our parameters here. We can go into color. We can go into phaser steps, and now you have width, transition, deceleration, and acceleration or whatever you want to call it. So the first thing we want to play with is width, because we want this step to be fast. It doesn't have the same width as the other steps. And this is in you can call it in a percentage. Right now our entire phaser here is a 3-step phaser, so it is 300%, 100% per step. So we can go into the width in step number 1, as you can see here, and I can turn this all the way down to, let's say, down to maybe 30%. So now we have 30% on step 1, and now we have a math problem because 100% on step 2 and 100% on step 3 and 30% on step 1 is only 230%, and we want it to be 300. So what we can do is divide the difference. We have 170%. We need to divide between 270%. We need to divide between the other 2 steps. So we can go into step number 2 and make that 135, like this. And we can go into step number 3 and make that 135 as well. And now you can see what's happening here is that step number 1 is going to be active here, and then we have step number 2 and step number 3 here. This is like the full run of the entire phaser. So if we run this now, you can see it fades nicely. Then it's faster in white, but it's not a snap. So to make it a snap, we need to do something different, because we have our transition here as well. And you can see what's happening here in step number 1. It's kind of fading up here, fading the white color up here, or fading the change anyway, and we need it to be faster. We can go into transition here in step number 1. Right now I'm in step number 1, and as soon as I start turning this one, you can see it kind of shortens the curve between step number 3 and step number 1, and you can see now it snaps in and it fades out here into the other colors. Again, if you want to make it less obvious, it doesn't have to snap that much, you can adjust this transition here. You can also change the curve on how it stops and how it starts, and you can see, it's a little hard to see, but you can see we're actually starting to make like a curved deceleration here, and the same we can do in the other end. We can do acceleration here, and you can manipulate this all you want. That depends on how you want to build your phaser here. Put this to 0, and we put this to 0 as well. So we're not going to play with these guys right now. So now let's go back to transition. Let's look at this curve here, and while we are moving it down, you can see it actually now snaps into white and fades nicely between the other colors. So that's our own phaser. We can store this here now as a new one if we want to, and you can now see we have kind of the same phaser. We can delete the first one, and this one, oops, we clear this stuff here and we delete this one here. There we go, and we can move this over here. Now if I apply this, we should see what we wanted to see, which is it snaps into white and it fades between the other colors. We can add our matrix to this if we want to, and you can see how it works now. We can take the speed up a little bit if we want to, and this could be what we want. We could technically store this into this one here, and now we actually altered this one. We did our phaser before with all the colors and how they transition between the different steps, and we applied the matrix. You can see the matrix logo up here. So if I apply this to these guys here, it's just going to run. If I zoom out, select all my mega points here, I have 50 mega points, I think. I can turn them on, put them into position 2 here, and I can apply the same thing, and you can see it also starts to do the right thing. And you can also see that they actually, even though they are different in width, that like there's 50 mega points and there's only 12 of the other ones, they actually start and stop at the exact same time. So it just divides it out between all of them and uses the same timing. And you can change all that stuff. That's all up to you. And here we don't use any of the selection grid or anything. So let's clear this and see, okay, let's go back to our fixtures here, and let's try to do another phaser. Basically, it could be fun to try to do a flyout and see how we can build a flyout from the ground up in just a 2-step flyout. So let's start by taking our vipers here and say, what do we want to happen in step number 1, the first step of our phaser? We can say in step number 1, we want it to go up into the air. In step number 2, we want it to go, what did I push here? Step number 2, we want it to go all the way down to position number 1. So now we built a phaser, and it's going up and down and up and down, and it's going faster than the fixture can actually do. So let's just take our phaser overall, our speed on our position here, and take it down to maybe 20. So now it's just moving a lot slower. You can see here where it's actually where it is. You can see the small cursor moving back and forth here on the phaser here. You can see it here. So what we want to do now is we want to add something to it, and it can be difficult to add something to something moving. So we can go into single step. It stops in step number 2. Let's go into step number 1 and say, what do we want to happen in step number 1? It's moving up. We want to make a fly out. So we want it to turn on and move all the way up. Turn off before it's all the way up. Move down while it's black, and then vice versa. Let's just continue to do that. We are in step number 1. We can just add dimmer at full to it. We can go into step number 2, and we can add at 0 to it. So if we make sure that it's synced, start it again, you can see now it's actually doing something. But before we did actually change the speed for the dimmer, so we need to do that again here in the, sorry, we did it for the position. We need to put this into 20 as well, and we need to turn the sync off and turn it back on, so we make sure that they're running in the same pace or in the same time. So now, let's start manipulating this stuff here. We have our dimmer, we have our position information here. We want to change our position information first. So we turn off the dimmer here and we go down and look into the pan and tilt. we are in step number 1. We need step number 1 to be longer than step number 2, and we can use the width to do that. So if we go into position here, we go into, not measure, sorry, width here, we can say step number 1, which we are currently in here, is supposed to be 150% of the circle, or the cycle. Step number 2 is 50%. So once again, we are on a 2-step chase. We wanted to add up to 200%, because it's a 2-step chase and not a 3-step chase. We need to do the same for the dimmers. We can actually do that later. First of all, we need to make sure that the transition between how it moves and how fast it moves are different. So we can say our step number 1, here it fades all the way up, which is what we want. Step number 2, it fades all the way down to the other position, which is not what we want. We want it to be as fast as possible. So we go into step number 2, and we look at our transition here, and you can see as soon as I start moving this one, you can see this is where it starts its movement, this is where it stops its movement. So we can actually go all the way down here. Now it's going to go up slowly, and it's going to snap down. It's still not in sync with our dimmer here, but we'll play with that in a second. So now you can see step number 1 is actually all the way up to here, and step number 2 is only this part here. So 3/4 of the time it's going to go up, 1/4 of the time it's going to go down as fast as it can, because it's not fading. You can see that with this curve here. So let's go into our dimmer and turn these guys off. You can see it's almost doing what we want. Let's say we want the dimmer to fade all the way up, and we want it to turn off before it starts its movement. And we know that this is 150%. So maybe we set this to 130, so we give it time to turn off in a nice way and also to turn on in a nice way. So let's take our dimmer here, go into phaser steps and into step number 1, and we give it a width of 130. And then we can go into step number 2 and give it a width of 70, because that adds up to 200. So let's say in step number 1 we want to control our transition. We want it not to fade up in intensity all the way up. We want it to fade up fairly quick, be on, and then fade out before the movement. So let's go into our transition. Let's take our dimmer, and you can see I'm moving the transition back here. Let's say it fades up down to about here, and we can do the same in step number 2. We want it to be off before it hits this point in time. You can see right here. We go into our transition here, and we can move this down to here somewhere. We can turn the sync off, and we can turn it on again. And now we actually build our own flyout. This is how easy it is. And you can add all the stuff you want to in this phaser if you want to. Right now we are only using a position parameter, or the position parameter, and the dimmer parameters. You can build colors on it as well. You can do all kinds of different things. It's only your imagination who is the stopping point for this. So this is how phasers work. This is basically how easy it is. We can take our dimmer position and or pan and tilt here. We can store it down in our preset here, and you can see now it actually contains some selective information, which is not what we want. We want to make sure that we only have universal information. So now if I take my vibers here, I put them into this movement here, I can actually select all but one, and I can make sure all the parameters are active. I can store and I can remove it here, and that makes it universal, because now this phaser only works or only contains one fixture, and one fixture, it can be universal. That can be translated into anything. So if I take my vibers here and I activate this, you can see it works. If I take all my mega points, I can zoom out here. I can also put this into here, and that will also work, which is kind of cool. So if I now activated this, I can add my matrix now. After the phaser is started, I can phase it to 360. I can even, if I want to, shuffle it like this. And now you can see our flyout works as intended on every fixture. We can do the same for our vibers here. We can put it into this one as well. We can also give this one a phase. We can also shuffle this one if we want. So now we created a flyout all on our own, and I hope you get the principle in how this works. It is actually quite simple to work with. So I hope you enjoyed this video from the Event Lighting channel today, and you're more than welcome to leave a like and subscribe to Event Lighting if you don't want to miss any future episodes. And you're also more than welcome to comment down below if there's anything you want to say. You're more than welcome to put it down there. So I hope you're going to play with this at home. I think it's fantastic to play with, and playing with it actually teaches you how stuff works and gives you some kind of routine in what width does and how transition works and all this stuff. So until I see you next time, happy programming on your GrandMA software at home. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.